This gentleman has traveled a long distance to be with us today, and we are very honored and pleased that he is here, and I know that you are going to be very excited by his topic and the information he has for us. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He believes in freedom with responsibility. With responsibility. He believes that government should be pushed to the side and people should be free to pursue their own potentials. This man has been involved in politics in New Zealand for the campaign for Soviet-free New Zealand. He is a founder and editor of KeyWiki, a website dedicated to exposing corrupt activities by American politicians. You will know him as the author of The Enemy Within. Please give a hearty welcome to Trevor Loudon.
Hi guys, thanks very much. Thanks for having me here. Can you all hear me okay? Can you understand a real southern accent? Good. Look, my book, I'll truncate my speech today. My book is about the Marxist takeover of the United States. You know, this is Czechoslovakia in 1948. This isn't just the Liberal Democrat versus Republican game. Now, the mechanism that is used is control of the labour unions. Now, you were very lucky in America for a long time because your AFL-CIO was run by hardcore anti-communists like Lane Kirkland and George Meany. But in 1995, folks, everything changed. That was the year that Democratic Socialists of America and the Communist Party USA, organisations you've never ever heard of or thought had long gone out of existence, that was the year they took over the AFL-CIO. They kicked out Lane Kirkland, they put their member John Sweeney in as president, and now their protege Richard Trumka runs it for them. They then mounted a purge inside the Democratic Party. They took out all the independents, the Southern Dixiecrats. Joe Lieberman was taken out. Now the one independent left, Robert Menendez from New Jersey, is facing corruption charges. So what happened then? They took over the Democratic Party, and then they started to dictate policy. It's very simple. 20,000 Marxists took over the unions. They then started setting policies like socialization of student loans, normalization of relations with Cuba, Obamacare, and amnesty. These are all Marxist policies, folks, 100% dictated by a small minority, and they're affecting 300 million Americans. I want to talk a little bit about amnesty because this is going to strangle you folks if it's allowed to go through. The leader of this movement, well, put it this way, any former or current union members here today? Not trying to persecute you, just curious. Think back, which organisation in America 25 years ago was leading the charge against illegal immigration? Against the unions. Because they saw that illegals were unfair competition for union members and would drive wages and conditions down. Now in 2015, which organisation is leading the charge to legalise the illegals? The unions. So why were illegals bad for union workers 25 years ago, but now they're okay? The point is this. Before 1995, the unions were there to represent the interests of their members. Since 1995, when they were taken over by the Marxists, their agenda changed to promoting socialist revolution. The unions are selling out their own members every day, folks, because the revolution comes first. And it is not easy to get union members to vote directly against their own interests. The man leading this movement, Eliseo Medina, until recently the executive vice president of the SEIU union, took 5 years of hardcore lobbying inside the AFL-CIO to get them to flip their policy from anti-illegal to pro-illegal. Now, Medina is a card-carrying member of Democratic Socialists of America, a Marxist. He supports the Communist Party. He served on Obama's Latino Advisory Committee. And he is the man who got the bill pushed through your Senate, the amnesty bill pushed through your Senate a couple of years ago. He then went to his good friend Luis Gutierrez, the rep from Illinois, to help to drive this bill through the House. When that Gutierrez, incidentally, is a former member of the Puerto Rican Socialist Party, a pro-Cuban Marxist-Leninist outfit. When that failed, Medina basically went to the president and demanded executive amnesty, which he got. Now, why is this Medina's life's work, and why was the president willing to give up the Senate, which he was, to get amnesty? Well, Medina let the cat out of the bag at a big progressive conference in Washington, D.C. 3 years ago. I've got him on tape. I quote him in my book. He got up in front of the comrades and said this: "Passing an immigration bill, amnesty, is the number one priority of the progressive movement. We have to get citizenship and voting rights for our 11 million undocumented workers." And did he talk about compassion, reuniting families, giving immigrants a break? Not a word, folks. All he said was this: in 2008, Latinos voted overwhelmingly for Obama and progressive candidates. If we stand by these people and get them citizenship and voting rights, they will stand with our movement. That will give us at least 8 million more Democratic Party votes. That will give us a governing majority, not just for the next few election cycles, but for the foreseeable future. Think about it, folks. 8 million more Democratic Party votes. Mitt Romney lost by 2.5 million. If they get this through, people, if amnesty is allowed to go through, the Democrats will dissolve the southern border. They will import hundreds of thousands of more Latino voters, hundreds of thousands of people from the Middle East, turn them all into Democrats, and they will have their one-party state, folks. This is why Obama was willing to give up the Senate. He is a Leninist, people. One step backwards, 2 steps forwards. He gave up the Senate because amnesty is the road to the one-party state, controlled by the unions and the Marxists. This is their ace in the hole, people. That is why we have 22 months to save this country. We don't have 20 years or 30 years. We've got one election cycle. Because if the Democrats win again, they are going to become a one-party government. Now, I want to go back in history now, because I think this is illustrative of where you are now. Back in 1976, this country had been losing its liberties, Republican, Democrat, for decades. And the people were pretty darn frustrated, but they had nowhere to go. But that year, they finally had an alternative. That year, a man came out of California who spoke of a shining city on the hill, peace through strength, and liberty and the Constitution. And hundreds of thousands of people, just like you, loved Ronald Reagan's message. And they got fired up and they... Yep, you clap. And they got fired up and they all piled into the Republican Party to help Ronald Reagan, and they thought they would be welcomed. And what did the Rockefeller Republicans, the Karl Roves and the John Boehners of the day, think of Ronald Reagan and his supporters, folks? They hated him. They sabotaged him. They dirty tricked him. Ronald Reagan was far too extreme to be elected. Ronald Reagan would destroy the Republican Party. Ronald Reagan was banned from Ohio in 1976 by the Ohio State GOP. They hated him, people, and they beat him. They gave the nomination to Gerald Ford. Ford went up against Jimmy Carter, and Carter won. How did those Carter years work out for you guys? Barrel of laughs, were they? Interest rates up to here, gas queues round the corner, gave away the Panama Canal, gutted your military, Iranian hostage crisis, your second worst ever president, people. And how bad were those Carter years, folks? There were people seriously saying that America would never be great again. But the important point is this: the grassroots, the people just like you, stayed the course. They took over the precinct positions in the GOP, the nominating bodies of the party. When Reagan ran again in 1980, this time they were ready, this time they were organised, and this time they would not take no for an answer. They forced the GOP to give them their candidate, and they got it. Reagan ran against Carter. He took him out 48 states to 2, people. Not bad for an unelectable candidate, right? The Iranian hostages were back on the first day, folks. The interest rates went down. The taxes went down. The economy boomed. He rebuilt your military. He rebuilt the pride in this country, and he took out the Soviet Union without firing a shot, folks. Any better president in the 20th century? And why? Anyone even close? And why did you have a Reagan revolution, folks? Because people just like you stuck it to the Karl Roves and the John Boehners of the day, and you decided the candidate. Could there be a message for today? Because right now, folks, this country is Jimmy Carter on steroids. And you need Ronald Reagan on meth to turn this around, guys. Not just to go where Reagan did, way beyond Reagan. You have to gut your federal government and restore your constitution. You know that. But how are you going to do it? Reagan was a genius. He could unite the social conservatives, the fiscal conservatives, the defence conservatives. He could bring the Reagan Democrats across, the great communicator. But right now, people, your base is very fractured. You've got 1 million libertarians who gave their vote to Gary Johnson last time. You've got social conservatives, fiscal conservatives, Tea Party Republicans, moderate Republicans. You got 4 million GOPers who didn't even vote last time, folks. And you've got upwards of 30 million evangelical Christians who are not even registered. Think of what they could do to transform this country, both politically and spiritually, folks. And you may not, and you have all a vote for it against you now, people. You've got the dirty tricks, the media against you. Can you afford to lose any element of that base if you're going to win and make that victory worth something? I mean, you may not have heard this, people, but some of these elements of your base don't like each other very much. Have you heard a few whisperings along those lines? Right? We are 22 months out, people, for the most important election in American history. The most important election in world history, folks, because if you go down, every Western country is going to follow. We got to win it. Now, we can't just tell people to unify because we're all individuals. The Democrats have a smaller base than ours, but they can bribe every element of it. We can't do that. We have to inspire our base, enthuse our base, get them out there, just can't wait to get their candidate selected. I've seen 2 candidates in the last 30 years at the presidential, vice presidential level who could inspire the base. Ronald Reagan and Sarah Palin. Any others? So we have to inspire our base, folks. It's no good just telling our base that the Democrats are worse. We have to give them a vision of a better society, of liberty, the Constitution, and a better future for their children. Is that going to work, or just telling them how bad the Democrats are? Because that's been the Republican strategy for a long time, folks. So this is what I would do, people. So we have to win the next election. It can only be by the GOP because the third party can't do it now. The choice is this. If the old guard have their way, they will give you a candidate like Jeb Common Core is wonderful, illegal immigration is an act of love, Bush, and we're toast, folks. And you can guarantee if that happens, either Hillary Clinton or Pocahontas Warren will be your next president. But if you have a real fighter, and I'm going to be partisan here, folks, because there's only one candidate who stood hardcore against amnesty, against Common Core, against the IRS, has never wavered. Not once. If you have a candidate with a proven record of sticking it to the establishment and putting up his fist for the Constitution, a man like Ted Cruz, for instance, things could be very different. So this is what I think Ted Cruz should do, people. This is my recommendation for what it's worth from a Kiwi from down under. Ted Cruz should go to all of these groups right now and say something like this. We've got one shot at this, guys. We need to unify. You're only going to do that if I give you some incentive. So this is what we're going to do. The first thing that's going to happen, I'm going to name Alan West on my VP ticket right now. And then for you libertarians, it's going to be Rand Paul, Secretary of the Treasury, and he can do anything he damn well likes to the Federal Reserve and the IRS, carte blanche. Then it's going to be Sarah Palin, Secretary of Energy, and it's going to be drill, baby, drill. Drill in your backyard if you want to. And then it's going to be Scott Walker, Secretary of Labour, and it's going to be right to work in every state, folks. And then it's going to be Mike Lee, Secretary of the Interior. And you know all those lands in the West that the federal government think they own? Guess who's going to give them back to the states, folks? And then it's going to be Michelle Bachmann, Secretary of Commerce. And it's going to be deregulate, deregulate, deregulate. Get rid of OSHA, EPA. Get American businesses working and employing again, folks. Then it's going to be Dr. Ben Carson, Secretary of Health and Human Services. And he's going to end the welfare culture in this country and restore dignity to your communities. And then Secretary of State, John Bolton. And he's going to flip the bird to Mr. Putin and the Ayatollahs. And he's going to rebuild the Western Alliance, folks. Then very important, ambassador to the United Nations, no one. Trey Gowdy, Attorney General. Guess what he's going to do to those vote fraudsters, people? And for those millions of Christians who don't care about politics, but they don't want Common Core, they hate the state getting into their kids' heads, they love homeschooling, I would say to them, vote for me and your millions, we'll make David Barton Secretary of Education. Name your whole team. Get Ted Cruz to name his whole team, run as a team across this country. Would you be enthused by a team like that, guys? And would it unify the base? Because everybody's getting something, right? The moderates get something. The social conservatives get something. The libertarians get something. And don't they all deserve it, folks? Aren't you all Americans? People, I can't promise you much, but I can promise you two things. If you do nothing in the next 22 months, your children will live in slavery in this land. But if you give it everything you've got, folks, every fibre of your being for your country and your constitution, the very least I can promise you is the right to look your children in the eye and say, I did everything I could. What is that worth to you guys? And if you win, and you can win, you will give your children not just the amazing country you have inherited, but one even greater. Is that worth fighting for? So I just want to say thank you for what you do for America, for my country, for liberty. God bless America and God bless the 603 Coalition. Thank you.